and they're either young and or improving. I got Ryan Matthews, Beanie Wells, LaShawn McCoy, Jerome Harrison, Jonathan Stewart, and Jamal Charles. So I think that those, while they all have something in common, I also think that they're all going to have pretty similar production throughout the year. Would you like to retort, Dustin?
Well, there's a couple things that I wanted to talk about is Jamal Charles, who I really thought could be a top 5 back until they signed Thomas Jones. Mm-hmm. And at that point, I still thought it could be a top 5 back until they're listing Jones as the starter. And the more and more I read about Todd Haley and Charlie Weiss's background is they love to utilize a 2-back system. So I think that just absolutely kills Jamal Charles. I mean, he does have the breakaway ability to get 2 touches, and those 2 touches both go for 65 to 80 yards and a touchdown. But I don't know. Just Thomas Jones just scares me off in that situation.
Let me ask you this, and I'm sure your answer is yes. You're a freak about fantasy football, but obviously we all know about what Jamal Charles did the last 6 games last year.
The last half of the season.
Last half of the season.
Yeah, the last half of the season he was the number 2 running back to Chris Johnson.
I mean, do we know anything besides just the numbers? Like, have we taken a look at the circumstances in which he scored 40 some odd points that game, or was he playing the weakest running teams the whole entire time, or are we just saying, look at those numbers, he's got to be that good again this year?
He was playing some tough teams who were in that mix, I remember. And they weren't all tough, but I remember he put up some decent numbers on some tough teams.
I'm just playing devil's advocate here.
Well, let's go week 15, 16, 17. Week 15, he played Cleveland. He had 25 attempts for 154 yards and a touchdown.
Okay, I could have rushed for 80, but go ahead.
Well, I don't think you got to remember Cleveland's defense last year improved over the second half of the season, especially after that game against the Steelers where they beat the Steelers on, I think it was Monday Night Football. They had a pretty improved
Thursday,
defense.
maybe, I don't know.
What'd you say?
Thursday night. I don't remember. Go ahead.
I think you're right. Thursday. Yeah, it was a Thursday night. You're right. Not saying that the Cleveland rush defense is stalwart in any means, but still not the Bills' rush defense. It wasn't. Who was another terrible team last year? The Chiefs' rush defense. Week 16 at Cincinnati, who had a great defense. He had 24 rushes for 102 yards. No touchdowns, but 3 catches for 22 yards, which I think is a pretty big stat, especially against Cincinnati rush defense. And then week 17 at Denver, and I know that's kind of they were both out of the playoffs, so they might have been seeing who was ready to do what for the next year. He had 25 rushes for 259 yards and 2 touchdowns. And
big day?
Yeah, that was a big day. I don't think Denver. I mean, Denver's along the same rush defense as I categorize Cleveland as, but
okay,
they're not terrible. And we'll go back a little further. Yeah, I mean he played Pittsburgh. He had 17 rushes for 58 yards. And then basically the last 4 weeks of this season was when he blew up and had over 100 yards each game. But I don't know. I mean, the way I look at it is he is unproven, I guess, in the sense of the word. I don't think that you could. I mean, Chris Johnson's only really done it for a season as well. I know Jamal Charles only did it for half the season, but it was only because I think he could have done it for the whole season if he was the starter the whole season. So, but Thomas Jones is definitely a better backup than whoever the hell, Larry Johnson and Colby Smith and whoever the hell else they had there last year. The other one I wanted to talk about was Jerome Harrison. Mick has him in tier 4. I actually have him in tier 6. He was another breakout last half of the season. I think, Miller, you picked him up, didn't you, last half of the year last year?
Yeah, I definitely had him on my bench when he put up like 49.
I remember that. The 34 attempt, 286 yard and 3 touchdown day against Kansas City.
Yeah, he was safely seated on my bench.
What week was that?
That was week 15. But he did have 194 attempts last year for 862 yards, only 5 touchdowns. 3 of those came in week 15 against Kansas City. The other one was week 16 against Oakland. The last one was week 17 against Jacksonville. And he was running to the ground last year, and I think he's actually, or he was trying to hold out for a bigger contract, and I think he might be back in camp. But they did sign Montario Hardesty. As far as all of the quote-unquote experts are concerned, Montario Hardesty is going to be the starter there. I know Hardesty, I think he's injured right now, actually, and an injured rookie running back falls behind a lot quicker than.
So I don't understand why Jerome Harrison is not the starter. Like, I don't understand that.
I don't either.
Like, I don't understand the Browns. I mean, like,
it's
they waited to the end of the year, and then they he was like amazing for 3 games. I don't understand. Right. Like, he didn't have a bad showing. I mean, he had a good showing. Is there something else going on with him?
Well, I think the holdout part didn't help. Basically, he was holding out for a bigger contract after only having 3 games, or 3 or 4 good games. So I think that kind of might have been taken as a spit in the face to Mike Holmgren. But, I agree with you. They did use a fairly high draft pick on Montario Hardesty. So I expect it to be a timeshare, actually. I think Harrison will start off the year. Once Hardesty gets more acclimated to the offense, he'll come in and be kind of a 50-50 timeshare. But the other thing I'm worried about is Delhomme is there. I know Brady Quinn wasn't a great quarterback, but I think Brady Quinn's a lot better than Jake Delhomme. You talk about Flozell Adams.